Hey, what's up, everyone? We're back. Week 2 is done. Week 3 is happening. Hope you're having a good start to your week. Hopefully, it's a lot better than game 2 of our softball game last night. If you know, you know. So I'm here with Dylan Singleton. Dylan, let's hand it off to you. Let's get this thing going.
Yeah. The first big thing we're going to go into right here is just the idea of our last week's matchups. So we're going to talk about. So we're going to get those pulled up real quick for us. Add that to the stream. All right. Can you see them now? Are we good to go?
Let's roll.
All right. So last week's matchup, I think our first big matchup to go over. I will save this one to the end. So let's just move to the next one real quick. Our first matchup really look over is Bryce and Trevor. What do you think about this one, Matt?
Yeah, I feel bad for Trevor. That Monday night again. It comes down to it again. This was a good close game though. The way both teams played, but very disappointing for Tyreek Hill. For Trevor, Tyreek Hill being a dud, that hurt him. But again, tough week for Trevor.
Tough week for Trevor overall. Yeah. I honestly didn't think he was going to pull that away on Monday after it being only Devontae Adams left. And he had some low. He doesn't have any running back games, and Tyreek Hill really let him down this week. But I think a lot of people knew that he couldn't go off every single week, and so Devontae Adams really did pretty well there to help catapult back up, which kind of had another player to help him out there. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But I believe I picked Bryce, and you and Caleb both picked Trevor, so it was a good matchup coming out of that. Our next matchup then is going to Connor Boydson versus Drew.
Yeah, Connor's team finally showed up after a really pathetic week 1. He did it really good across the board. Tom Brady doing well. You see Eckler. He started off with Terry McLaurin on Thursday night, so that was a really good boost to start. Also, if you're Connor, you're feeling good that Robert Tonyan produced and got a touchdown because he didn't have a great week 1 either. On the flip side for Drew, still looking for that first win. Josh Allen, he can get more points. And being at that 16 range, he needs more than that. And then was it Deontay Johnson that had a good performance, but also maybe injured now too? Get injured at the end. So that's a big question mark going forward, potentially. That's tough for Drew. But, tough loss. Just Connor Boydston a lot better this week. His guys showed up finally.
Yeah, but I like this matchup a lot. I'm still pretty high on Connor Boydson's team in the sense of on paper. You look at his team; it's a paper team. It's a pretty good-looking paper team. The idea is Zeke showed up, Eckler showed up, McLaurin showed up, Keenan. All his guys performed pretty well around for what you expect, and that's why he really got the win out of it, I think. His guys performed. Maybe none of them went crazy off. McLaurin had a 27-point game. That's still nothing insane for like what we've seen this week. Drew's team, okay, just none of them performed. A lot of them underperformed really, or about average or a little bit below average, when everyone on Connor's team was at least a little bit above average. So it was a really good matchup, I thought, though, and I picked Drew, I think, kind of as an underdog victory, but I think Connor's team looks good on paper going forward. It's just if they can keep this paper matchup going. Next matchup then was a close one, Isaac and Mason. It literally came down to the issue that for some reason Mason wanted. CEH is consistently, I think it's happened last year sometimes, as well as this. A fumble from CEH caused this win for Mason. Who knows? I think stat corrections are past at this point, so the game is over at this point, I believe. But that late fumble really just cost Isaac the game. He didn't really play to earn it anyways. Neither of these teams really earned this win. Look at Alvin Kamara and Kareem Hunt. Low-scoring games. Christian McCaffrey, he scored what he's going to score. CH, low-scoring game. Mark Cooper, low-scoring game. Tyler Higbee, low-scoring game. Tannehill put up 15. Russell put up 23. Neither of these teams earned a win here anyways, so.
Yeah, I remember thinking the entire game, what if Clyde fumbles? And especially when it came down that final drive, I kept thinking, what if Clyde fumbles? Watching this score, because I knew a one fumble is going to shift this game in the other direction, and it happened. Couldn't believe it happened. And I feel bad for Isaac that it happened. But yeah, there we go. 1-1 for Isaac. That's a tough way to take the first loss, but not a great performance from either of these teams. Very low scoring game. So I know both GMs are not happy about this.
Yep, and so that was just another big game, and then we have our second to last game, which is another close one actually. Connor McClain versus Caleb Boydston, and what can we say, Matt? It's the same way he lost the championship last year. He's scoring a lot of points. His guy looks really good. Aaron Jones, for one, he came out of the game, but he scored 4 touchdowns. Honestly, a better performance than Josh Allen had in the championship game. But his receivers didn't help him at all. Robbie Anderson, 6 points. Jacoby Myers, right around 7 to 8 points. Darren Waller, only 11.5 points. DeAndre Swift started picking up in the end, but it took too long. So when he got there, it just wasn't it. And on the other side, TJ Hawkinson showed up, but everyone on his team really showed up other than Antonio Brown, which kind of helped him get to that win. Connor McClain really had to have some ups and downs out of his guys.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk with General Manager McClain on Sunday night. And he said, "What are the odds that him saying he could get the points needed to come back on Caleb?" And I think he even probably surprised himself. Very disappointed that it got this close and he wasn't able to finish it. But I think probably had to be surprised himself that he actually got the points that Aaron Jones exploded for 40 points. And he was that close to taking down Caleb. I know for a fact Caleb Boydston had to be a little worried. And maybe that's being a little nice. I think he was very worried, actually, with how close this matchup got.
And I think that went for probably 4 of us that night. Not really Connor, who was down a little bit more than expected, but for me, you, and Caleb, I think all 3 of us were worried shitless, to be frank. And This is the last game of the week. The highest scoring teams, a winner and a loser. I think that happened last week too with Trevor, if I'm not mistaken. Honestly, both sides really showed up. To the extent of, Matt, we found your team. His name is Derrick Henry. Lamar played exceptional football. Honestly, Antonio Gibson was playing a tough Giants run defense from last year. Darrell Henderson got his points and got injured maybe. Cooper Kupp looking like wide receiver number 1 right now, and overall, Kelsey's going to be Kelsey. On your side, you had George Kittle come out there, and he's kind of messed up right now, but I fully expect to see good things from Kittle. And then Deebo Samuel was just the same thing, taking those shares away from him. But Aaron Rodgers, he's back, but it's like he couldn't get far enough, which really brought it down to the wire for this game as well. So I think it's payback for Connor's game last year.
It was close really going into the fourth quarter when I guess the interception right there, when it started raining and the fumble, maybe it wasn't an interception, the fumble, getting Aaron Rodgers the ball back. Yeah, I was extremely worried he could have had it. This was such a good matchup. You made a very fierce comeback, Dylan. And, for both of us to put up 160 points, what a great way. I believe 167, 164 are the 2 highest so far this season. I don't think we saw anywhere close to this week 1. Maybe 140s was the highest, maybe 150. But we both excelled. And again, for my team, yes, Derrick Henry. Thank you. Thank you, Derrick.
Thank you, Derrick Henry. Yes, exactly. And then outside of that, so that was really our big match from last week. So overall, you saw this head-to-head results. Matt went 0-5 in picks. Cal went 1-4, his 1 win being himself, and I went 1-4, my 1 win being Bryce. That sets our overall results for the year now. Matt is at 4-6 after a good week 1. Cal's at 4-6 after a decent week 1. I am at 1-9. So I think if this week goes as planned, as in I drop to 1-14, I will start to bet against everyone I think will win, and I should do pretty well. Our next biggest thing here going into is going to be that weekly pick results. I just went through that. And then, Matt, why don't you give us the best and worst team you have in mind right now?
Well, if you want to bring up the graphic as I'm saying it, do you have the graphic ready? Do we got it?
I can pull it up while you're saying it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll tell you, we'll start with the worst team. I have Bryce, and I'm sorry, Bryce, not to give you any love, but I'm kind of trending downward a little bit. And so there's our worst team. Our best team, and Dylan, I'm drawing a blank here. I don't want to say the wrong team, so can we pull up my graphic on that one?
Matt, you should be pretty obvious. It's the same one as last week.
Isaac, there we go. Yeah, it's been a long day. I'm not really thinking very well. So I didn't want to say the wrong team. I didn't want to disappoint somebody, but Isaac, yes. And we'll talk more about Isaac here soon. I give some love to Isaac. Again, this rough week too, that it got screwed because of the fumble, but we'll talk more about it.
Yep. And I don't necessarily agree with those fully, but I'm not going to come out here and say their names really right now. There's no really reason to. I think it's a good idea for that to come out from you. And there's no bias here really out of that, I think. I think a lot of people can agree Isaac's doing pretty well, and a lot of people can agree Bryce has not done well himself. And so we'll see that going forwards. We didn't have our expectation power rankings. So this is like I mentioned last week, purely who performed above and below expectation. The big thing on that is going to be, I will pull that up now actually. This is based on after week 1, what is now above and below. Here we go. So now after 2 weeks, we have Matt at 1, Mason at 2, Trevor at 3, Dylan at 4, Connor at 5, other Connor at 6, Caleb at 7, Isaac at 8, Bryce at 9, and Drew at 10. The only really changes to the actual expectation itself is Matt and Mason both jumped myself and Trevor due to them being 2-0 and we're 0-2. You can't let that happen really at the top. And then Caleb being sandwiched from 1-1 teams moved up 1 spot over Isaac. So this is purely teams performing above and below. As we get farther in the season, you should be able to see actually if it changes much. Because if your team is a powerhouse team on paper, it could affect you. Like, for example, if Isaac's team is projected to score the most every week, it could affect them, and it's going to be like, oh, he underperformed, though, because they were already projected so high. But also, that just shows the underdog teams can come out and just pound some scores. So I thought it was a really good update for that, and we'll come out with actual power rankings, I think, later in the year, probably around halfway point in the year. That way we can get some actual expectations on our power rankings and who we think is actually strong and weak based on records and scores. But yeah, so then week 3 head-to-head matchups is what we're going to go into next. Matt, just any rundown? Are you excited for this week? How do you feel about this week so far?
Yeah, it's been a good start to the season. It'll be a lot of fun. There's been some fun matchups. It's always come down to the wire on a Monday night. I'm ready to see what this week's got in store.
Yep, and so our first matchup of the week we're going to run through, I'm going to pull it up, don't worry, is going to be Dylan versus Mason, if it will ever load. It's loading.
Nice. Don't we love technology?
Matt, what do you think of this matchup already, though? Just the two competitors, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I want to bring in some stats about you in a second, but we'll just break this down just between you two. We are seeing a very heated rivalry leak over from baseball, and this is really intense. This is a fun matchup for anybody sitting back and watching the show. This is a fun matchup between two teams. Dylan, probably no one expecting you being 0-2. Mason, based on predictions, maybe you gave him love, maybe you didn't, and he's 2-0. So again, this is going to be a heated rivalry. As both of you, I don't think words are going to be exchanged. I think it's just going to be heated because we saw what happened in the baseball league. I reached out today to General Manager Walden for a comment, and he said he's got nothing to say. So, yeah, that's where we stand right now. But I love this matchup, and ESPN loves this matchup. It's basically a tie right now because we trust those points, right?
Yep, and then I have nothing really to say on that. That's yours. You see our predictions at the bottom?
Yeah.
What is it? Go ahead, Matt.
If we're going to move on to the next one, I do want to say one more thing, Dylan. For you, I was looking back at your history, right? Your history and in this Michael Scott league. In year 1, you only lost 3 games. In year 2, you lost 4, but you're the champion, right? You're halfway there to that last season mark. You only once in the 3 years of Michael Scott have lost back-to-back games. And now that's twice now. Back in 2020, you lost week 4 and 5. We were all looking at your team going, okay, Dylan's about 500 right now. He may slide. No, you only lost 1 game the rest of the season, a week 13 matchup against Bryce, and you won it all. This year, though, 0-2 start. I don't think anybody really saw this coming. 0-2 start, the second time ever that you've lost back-to-back games. You have never lost 3 in a row. What is this week going to happen? Can you start 0-3, which, again, would be a major shock? Can Dylan start, or can Mason start 3-0? A guy that did not win a game until week 8 last year or week 7? This is what a weird start to this league compared to last year. I'm excited about it. It's going to be a good matchup.
And the only thing I'm going to say on that is I'm the highest scoring team with the most points scored against at this current point. We saw Cal's team last year, highest scoring team, didn't even make the playoffs, I don't believe. That changes this year, obviously, in the rankings, which we put up. It was already on the vote as well. But I think it's a fun matchup. I'm ready for it. You can see our picks at the bottom. Matt picked Mason. I picked myself. I have to go with myself on this one no matter what. I'll go over this next matchup for us, Matt. We're going to Drew versus Connor. I'll go on the next 2, and then you can finish it off. Drew versus Connor, as you can see, I on paper here have Drew, and Matt on paper here has Connor. Again, it's a 50% probability matchup, though. I think it's a crazy matchup. Connor McClain coming off championship loss, and last week, almost the same way, out of a 2-0 victory. Drew hasn't really looked close in his matchups, I don't think. It's been a tough run, but Drew has it on paper. He's got Josh Allen, Nick Chubb, Chris Carson, Stephon Diggs, Deontay Johnson if he's healthy. He's got these players that on paper look good. Connor McClain has this good core of players, but he's still out on receivers. And I think everyone knows he's probably begging for receivers at this point, not necessarily in trades or in free agency or anything like that. He just needs some production out of receivers. He wants to see that. It's a 50-50 matchup, Connor v. Drew, and I just think it's going to be a fun week. Any real remarks on that one, Matt?
I think I said it last week. I know it didn't get it done, but Patty Mahomes, Aaron Jones going to carry Connor this week.
Yep, and then I'll go into the next matchup as well. We have Matt versus Trevor. That's what she said versus Redemption. Funny enough, Redemption is 0-2 again. But his team has looked better. I will give him that. It's a 51% probability in Matt's favor. Trevor's team has looked better this year. For example, last week, Tyreek Hill has a more decent game, or Miles Sanders or Jonathan Taylor does anything. He gets the win last week. Matt's team, astonishing victory last week in the sense of no one thought it. Derrick Henry has that opportunity, and he carried it with Lamar. Derrick Henry and Lamar accounted for over a third of Matt's points last week. It was a great win for Matt. Now going into this week, as you can see below, we both have Trevor picked. Matt is picking against himself again. I think this is 3 weeks in a row for Matt to pick against himself. I think he's just kind of feeling it at this point. Maybe I'll follow suit soon. But can Kittle perform? I think the biggest two questions this week are, can George Kittle perform? And will Rob Gronkowski continue to perform the way he has? Because if those players change it up, I think it's a tight end matchup coming down to it. It's a really close matchup. Any quick thing on that either, Matt?
I'm looking to face off, Trevor. Let's go, man.
All right, Matt, and you go into these last two. We got Bryce versus Connor for this first one. As it loads, how are you feeling?
Yeah, well, I don't feel good about Bryce as you see a pick. I've got Connor. I like Connor's team as it's picking up, as we saw last week. Again, good on paper. They did perform. Tom Brady's been playing great. He does have that matchup this week against Rams.
Yes, I do believe so. He's playing the Rams this week.
Yeah, and you've got Keenan Allen and you got Eckler going against Kansas City. That'll be fun. Bryce's team, again, Saquon is really not looking good. Okay, and that's a problem. I just have major concerns about Bryce's team. He can compete, but if he's not going to get much out of Saquon, that's going to hurt him, especially against Cookie Town Baby Daddies.
And one thing I will say on that really quick before we head on this next matchup is I think Saquon is finally getting a little bit more healthy. We saw some good runs last week. He broke off, I think, for a 39-yard run last week. It looked pretty good. He's getting healthy again. He's questionable again this week, I just realized. I did not see that till just now. I think it's health for him. They don't want to overrun him. They don't want to workhorse him. And Saquon, everyone I think, wants him to be a top 10 without fantasy interest. Everyone wants to see Saquon back, wants to see the ways he played. But it's just going to be tough. And then going to our last matchup, we have Caleb versus Isaac. How do you feel about this one, Matt?
This one will be a doozy right here. I like this one. It's going to be really close. I mean, ESPN projections, the big question for Caleb, Dalvin Cook, right? Is he going to be 100% healthy? On the other side, again, Isaac's team, a lot of question marks, but if they all play, I like Isaac's team a lot. You'll see Russell Wilson get those points. McCaffrey will have a heyday, and we'll see that Thursday night. But I like Isaac's team. I've got to lean a little bit towards Isaac. His team, he's going to come back after losing that close game to Mason, and it's going to be good. For Caleb, I mean, TJ Hawkinson's been amazing. Caleb also made a trade this week. He got Chris Godwin, which after we saw with that deal in Antonio Brown, who he sent away, is on the COVID list. Caleb already won this trade. I know, just for
a week, for 1 week.
Deal. We'll see what Najee does. We'll see what Calvin Ridley does. For Caleb, though, he needs Dak Prescott to come alive Monday night. And the good thing is he will have Dak Prescott going on Monday night. And it looks like, comparing the teams, Caleb will get the last word as he has two guys going Monday night. So Caleb will be down going into Monday. Will he have enough? Can Dak lead him to a victory over Isaac? And that's going to be, again, a fourth quarter game nail biter on Monday night.
The only last thing on that is, will he even be down? We both have Isaac picked in this game, but if Caleb's not down going to Monday night, he's fine.
That's true. There is that possibility, yes, of course.
There's that possibility. Our next subject we're going to discuss right here real quick and go over is then we have our biggest surprise. So I'm going to go through our biggest surprise here and just kind of put it up for you real quick, Matt. So I personally think that the biggest surprise is going to be Isaac this week. Not in the sense of scoring a lot of points. I picked him to win, obviously, but back-to-back weeks. So Isaac's first week, he looked pretty good. Last week, he didn't really look great. He had some good performers, some bad performers, but I think Isaac's team probably scores low this week. They might come out and beat Caleb still, but I just don't overall think it's going to be a great idea for this surprise here. And I think Isaac's team is going to surprise a lot of people in being overrated. That's my personal opinion, and I think it's going to be overrated on the year. And I don't really see it all the same way everyone else does, is that he's the best team in the league. But it could change very fast. Because last week I thought Isaac might be the best team, but after this week 2 performance, I'm really starting to question it. And then, so Matt, who do you think is actually going to be the highest scoring team this week?
Well, it'll be funny. We're going to continue to talk about Isaac. I've got Isaac as this pick, and we start Thursday night, that Carolina-Houston game. I think the projection ESPN has McCaffrey, projected 25 points. I'm going to tell you, McCaffrey's getting 30 plus, and Isaac's going to have a great start to a very successful week. McCaffrey is going to have a great game against Houston, and Isaac will be our highest scorer after this week.
And that sounds great and all, but let's see it happen. We're going to see. It's going to be a fun week, I think. I'm going to go over the standings real quick just to give you guys a real quick heads up on, like, obviously everyone knows what they're ranked, but give some standings overview on ideas of who's scoring the most, who's scoring the least. So currently the most points for in our league are to myself. I have 290 points scored, 290.72 points while it still loads up here. Our least points scored are Drew. So 2-0-2 teams with the most points scored, the least points scored. Most points allowed. Obviously, this isn't really points allowed in this league. It's more of just who's been scored the most against. I'm the only team to have more than 300 points scored against me. 315 points. The next highest is Drew with 271 points. It just happens to be I have scored the most and he has scored the least, and yet we are both 0-2 with the most points scored against and the second most points scored against. So could that change? I really don't know. Our least points, you have some other teams thrown up in there, like Matt and Connor towards the top in points for. Bottom teams are then you have Connor Boydston and Drew and Mason towards the bottom in points scored. Least points scored against Connor McLean. Connor Boydston has the least points scored against. So as we have it right now, our current playoffs, we have just 3 2-0 teams and 3 0-2 teams. Everyone else is 1-1 split in there. It's going to change a lot this year. Playoff percentages show up a lot, and I just don't know where it's going to come from that, but we'll see what happens next. Matt, what are your thoughts on where this is all going with our next part of the league?
Where it's going, like, from based on these standings?
Yeah, sure. Based on the standings, how do you feel, like, just some general concepts of the league?
Yeah, I mean, I think who would have thought coming into the season that Caleb, Mason, and myself would be 2-0? I mean, no one. 0% chance. We all had me ranked 10. Here I am at 2-0. Mason, I think, probably got a 50-50 split. I don't know exactly. I have to go back and see, but he's 2-0. I mean, how much love did he get? He's 2-0. And then Caleb, I think, Caleb, of course, would have said he'd be the best in the league. But did the rest of the teams buy that? But he's 2-0. Dylan, you are the Alabama of our fantasy leagues, and you're 0-2. Bryce, we expected to rebound. He's 0-2.
Bryce 1-1.
Or 1-1. Sorry, Bryce.
That close victory this week.
Yeah, close victory. Isaac, who we all probably thought going into it would be 2-0 and maybe 5-0 and 7-0. Who knows? He's 1-1. And Trevor, did we all think it would continue? I gave Trevor love that he was going to break the streak. And maybe he does this week and gets his first win, but he's 0-2. So it's kind of a weird year compared to what we've seen over the last 2 years. And every year is different, obviously. But it's just kind of a weird trend to start the season. We'll see if that finishes the season like old times or if this is a brand new era for Michael Scott. We'll see.
And then the last two things going forwards really are where our league itself is going forwards. And so, Matt, I think we discussed this past in the year, and I mentioned it last time. What is our organization? What are we supposed to do for these organizations we're trying to develop out of this?
Yeah, so if you have not gotten Dylan the information he needs, the name, the logo for the golden briefcase, cup, whatever it's called, the golden cup, golden briefcase cup, get that to him, because as we will be getting awards, prizes, cash, however it's decided. So make sure you get that information to Dylan. And I think what a little short bio too, like how your team was created, who's your team named after, just to be fun, because Dylan is putting together a really cool website. So I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm putting together this website right now for us, and then there's some more things coming off of this. The website's good, give traffic. You can show other people. It's gonna have all our league history in it and everything, which is another reason why I want these organizations. So I want your team names and these logos and things like that. Because on top of that, the plan next is I have this order set up for mini helmets. Each team will get their own mini helmet with their team's logo. So a mini football helmet with your team's logo and colors will be sent to you. Which is a big thing why I want your logos. I don't want to make your logo yourself, because if I make your logo, it might look horrible, it could look cool, but it might not be something you want. On top of that, so I've ordered a trophy already. I'm not going to show anyone until it comes in, and it's going to have the league winners from each season. So year 1, I believe, was Bryce. Year 2 was myself, and then I'll keep it for now. And then year 3, whoever wins, I'll ship it to them. And then the very last thing is, so the championship award, obviously a trophy is fun to have in your house and everything, but it's not anything really to keep. So starting this year, my plan is whoever wins the championship, for your team, you will get to select one player who played in your fantasy football team that year, and it will be his jersey and his jersey number with your last name on it. And that will be the championship award you get for winning. So you'll get the trophy at your house, plus you'll get an NFL jersey with your last name and the number and team of a player who played on your fantasy team to help show off to people. So that's the biggest thing I'm looking at it forward. So that's why I'm trying to look for logos and stuff like that as well, because the website's coming together pretty well. The last thing really on the website is, as you've seen before, Matt and myself have made random Twitter fake things, like fake Twitter messages. If you want to go on and make some of those, I'm going to put them on the website as if we have a social media page. So it'll be from your name, and it'll say like this team name has this comment towards the league as I'm putting together the website. So make some Twitter messages if you want, and we'll put it on the website. Say, oh, that's our social media as it pops up on the website each day. Group me messages will probably go on there, different things like that, just showing off that we have a social media abundance of each other as well.
Yeah, and one thing to add, I mean, thank you, Dylan, for putting all that content together. That's going to be awesome. Again, if you have content, that's what we feed. We're extra in this league. So I loved last week, the Mason versus Isaac, put a little graphic. They've got some quotes. Send me quotes. Send me sources. I want to be able, when we do these videos, to say, hey, we spoke to this GM and this is what they wanted to say about their rival. I mean, we want that content. I know it's dorky, it's fun, but again, it lives out the dream. We're on TV right now, right? Me and Dylan are on TV right now. We're talking about, we're having fun. Yes, it's extra, but look, we're all working or we're doing something. Days can be long. This should be just a fun thing to either laugh about or poke fun or say, screw you, man, Dylan, you're wrong. It at least gets people talking. So
yeah, if you have graphics or if you have a video or if you want something in the video, send it to us. We'll put it in. We'll make a video play for you. We'll put a graphic in. We can put a recording in and say, hey, we got a call earlier from Team Isaac or whatever your team name is. We got a call from you. We'll put it into the video. Like, if you give us anything, we will put it in.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, so give some call-in ideas. Honestly, if you guys want to speak on it, we can bring you on the show for a quick blip and then pop you out. Just give us some insight on what you want to do in the videos or what you want to make, stuff like that, and just make it a fun time.
Good stuff. I'm looking forward to it.
That's it. It's a good week. Looking forward to it. And you'll see us next week, probably in the next week's video, unless we have some update. Signing off.